engineering boyfriend is stressed. Basically, me being the 20-year-old female, boyfriend, 21 male, is a third year mechanical engineering student. I always see him very worked up, tired, and stressed trying to deal with his homework. He says how it takes him 40 minutes just to do one problem, and he barely has time to rest. He also works and such, and that he just has no idea at all on what he is doing. He feels frustrated and upset, and I don't really know how to help or what advice to give him. I feel a bit guilty because I have it a bit easy. I am on track to be a vet. Most of my classes are science-based rather than math-based, so I find it more easy for me, especially because it is something I am passionate about. My boyfriend isn't really passionate about engineering, but he knows it will make him a lot of money. He's thought many times on just giving up because he feels bad on how he's learning nothing and it makes him feel stupid, but he says he's already deep into his degree and that there's nothing he's really passionate about. What is some helpful advice I can give him? Okay, first of all, I want to give you a little tip about engineering students. We complain more than any other major. I mean, engineering is hard, and I'd argue that engineering is the hardest undergraduate major. However, I will say that there have been multiple times where I've said that I'm learning nothing. It takes me forever to do my problems. Yes, 40 minutes is pretty standard. I've spent hours doing one homework problem before. I mean, it's just that difficult sometimes to get things figured out. But in the end, I graduated. I learned what I needed to learn. I got my fundamentals of engineering. I have a job, and I'm really grateful that I made it through it. And I actually don't really do any engineering in my regular basis. I use a lot of the skills that I learned in my engineering program, but I actually don't do any engineering with my job, and I love it. And I'm sure that if he graduated, and he's a third year mechanical engineering student, so he's pretty close, he's at least halfway there. If he got his degree, the number of options that he'd have for him are limitless. He could do almost anything with an engineering degree. At least anything in like a professional working environment. You know, people love engineers. So what I'd recommend to you as his girlfriend is just to be encouraging and be somebody that can listen to him and comfort him and just sympathize with him. And I mean, maybe you can't sympathize from your personal experience, but you can, be supportive and not make him feel like he's irrational for thinking it's tough. It's tough. It's really tough. And encourage him. If he says he has to go study with a group of people a lot to help figure out problems, then as a girlfriend, maybe being understanding of that and being encouraging him to go participate in study groups and not pressuring him to, I mean, not saying you do this, but, being understanding that maybe he doesn't have as much free time some weeks because he has to prep for exams, or if he's really struggling to get a concept and he just really needs to go to office hours or he needs to go join a study group to try to pick up a concept, maybe being understanding of that's his priority right now. He has to get the degree and that'll set him up for long-term success in his personal and professional life. Being understanding of that. I would say, again, that's the only thing I'd say to say about him and his study habits. I wouldn't, and if I was in your position, I wouldn't really, critique his study habits unless he's just off the chain bad. Don't blame his struggling entirely on his study habits unless they're actually bad, because he might be kind of defensive about that. But as long as he has a good approach. Just continuing to encourage him to take to keep on that approach and not give up. How he's learning nothing and how it makes him feel stupid. If you don't think he's stupid, say, hey, you're not stupid. It's just difficult. And you might see that other people are struggling with it as well. And just, reminding him that it's just very difficult and it's very challenging. And you think he's bright and you know that he can do it. 40 minutes to do one problem. Point him to this subreddit and everybody will tell him that yes, it takes that long to do these problems, but it doesn't take as long whenever you have people around you to help you understand things, and you don't feel as alone whenever you have other people that you're around that are also going through the same thing as you, and he'll also learn a lot by just talking to other people about it. Maybe if you and him, if you study well independently, maybe if you want to study together, maybe being willing to study where he needs to study, another thing you could do. But what else would I say? The thing, Maddie was a really good supporter for me whenever I was in engineering. We set up specific times of the week that we knew that we were going to get to spend time, but we just had very realistic expectations going into each week. I kind of set the expectation. I was like, hey, this is going to be a rough week, and I'm not going to have much free time during XYZ, but at the end of the week, we'll go on a date or something like that. And we just, having good streamlined communication around our relationship made it easier for me to then focus on my studies when I really needed to focus on them. So I wouldn't really focus on giving him advice on how to be an engineer or on problems or anything. Don't help him with his homework, but I'd just say be positive and encouraging and understanding that he might need to be studying with other engineering students during his time. And it's the problem solving, it might require more group thought than maybe some of your pre-vet courses might require. I know I wasn't in that experience. I knew some people that were in pre-med, and some of them studied well in groups and some of them studied better independently. So maybe he has a different approach to studying. He might benefit from a different approach to studying than you, but just be positive and encouraging, and you use good lines of communication about your relationship with him. And I think allowing him to really be an engineering student, being a good student within the context of your relationship is really what you should focus on. But yeah, it's tough. It definitely is tough, and I can definitely sympathize with all the things that he is feeling now. So all right, so that's this week's episode of the Engineering Success Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to write in your own question, again, write into engring.success@gmail.com. Subscribe to me on YouTube, Anchor, Apple Podcasts. Give me a 5-star rating and I'll share it. If you give me a 5-star rating, I will read it if it is appropriate on the podcast. And as always, thank you all for your support, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. I just made a pilot, then they threw me on the stations. I'm not complaining, My thoughts get complicated, I cannot explain in lameness. Never losing focus because I ain't chasing payments. Still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries, thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify, they put me on the station.